Okay, so the class is being recorded. A very good morning to you. And this is me again, Dr. Sameh A.Galil, and this is EA300B, Children's Literature 2. Today is, we're making up for the class that we should have done on Monday, but as I told you, overscheduled. I had other issues, and that's why we're meeting to make up for that loss. So what is it that we're doing? So last time was the first class ever, EA300B, and we started the course. We gave an introduction about what we are in for. We spoke about picture books in general, spoke about the shift from mainstream literature to children's literature, and also the shift from textual literature, where the focus is on the text, on the word, to a kind of literature where the focus is about this balance between the text and the image. And I gave you a chance to even read the picture book. And the picture book that we're featuring is The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Um, so we did it together, and I expect you to have also gone through it again, because obviously the more you read the picture book, the more ideas that you normally come up with. So have you done it again? Have you read it again? The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Anyone and everyone. Raise your hands. If you have read it beyond the time that we read it together when we were here last time. Rad did. So Rad, you did it back home, right? On your own for the second time, right? This is what I understood.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so any new discoveries? I mean, did you come up with something new, things that we didn't talk about? Interpretation. I'm talking about interpretations. Like I said, the more you read, the more ideas you come up with. So what's new, if any?
No, actually, I didn't come up with anything.
Uh-huh. You were perhaps half asleep or something? So what did we say about it? Let's yani, forget about the idea of whether you came up with some. So what is it that you know about the Tale of Peter Rabbit, whether it's interpretation or the storyline? I'm talking to Rad and to anyone else and everyone else. What's happening? Last time you were full of life. Is it too early? 10 o'clock is not too early, obviously, right? We're having a class at 10, at 8 tomorrow at 8 a.m. So are you not going to come, for example? And if you come, you'll be like this. EA300B is about interactiveness, and this is what I keep trying to do to keep it as interactive as I possibly can. But let's make it this way. So it shouldn't be me talking and saying everything and monopolizing the conversation. This is something that I hate, and I think you hate it too. So let's talk. I mean, whatever you say is going to be relevant and it's going to be appreciated. You don't have to fear that you may say something wrong. There is obviously nothing wrong in literature. All is good. So I hope this is reassuring enough. So let's talk about what you still remember about our conversation last time and what you read about the Tale of Peter. Yep.
Doctor,
Yeah, yes.
yeah, the story about Peter Rabbit who didn't listen to his mom and went to the garden, and then after what happened and he gets sick, He went back home, and then his mom, she gave him a tea before he sleep. Except his sisters, who eat food and drink everything and enjoy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
Zuhur.
a bad thing
I
for him.
mean, yeah, the fact that you're saying that he didn't listen to his mom, this is a statement in and of itself. This is a judgment, which is okay. This is your own interpretation of the thing. So not listening means that he was in some way disobedient, which some of us may agree with, and some others may say no. This is perhaps a natural behavior. Children are like this. Thank you, Zuhur. Can we have somebody else? Yeah, Layan, go ahead.
Sorry, but what was your question? Because my internet was not working well.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't asking. I wanted to see how far you still remember the Tale of Peter Rabbit in terms of storyline, which Zuhur gave us, and in terms of interpretations, the things that you t took away from the picture book. We read it together, if you still remember, and I also left you and I said that you guys need to also read it on your own. So whatever sticks now, what you still remember about the picture book? Then
That
you're still
the
raising your
picture,
hand. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, that the pictures and the words work in a parallel way.
You mean that they work together
Yeah,
towards giving us a full meaning? You're trying to say that you cannot separate the word from the picture. You're trying to say that we cannot anymore prioritize the text or the word over the picture. This is what you're trying to say? Because
yeah.
if you're
I
saying
was
that, yeah, that's correct. Yes, that's lovely. Okay. Anybody else? So again, Lan is saying very nice things, and she came up with very interesting insights about the idea that with picture books you don't anymore prioritize the text or the word. The picture is as important. Sometimes it's even more important than the text. Sometimes you find the text very poor in, conveying the nuances of the story. So you will always need to look at the picture and see, especially when it comes to conveying the emotions and the feelings that Peter goes through, especially also in moments of danger. I don't know whether you have felt that or not as you went through the picture book. I'm talking to everyone. Anybody else? Would you like to come to the mic and share your insights? What you feel about the tale? Dina is raising her hand, and we also have Aisha after her. Dina, go ahead. Dina, we're waiting for you because you raised your hand. If you think that you're talking, you're not talking, you're silent. Okay, let's have somebody else until Dina is ready. Aisha? Aisha?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that Peter was uh, helping the other rabbits stay away from danger, as in the consequences of his actions. They don't get caught in the trap.
You mean he was giving other animals and perhaps other people an example? You need to
In
face up, you need to kind of ca- cal
consequences.
calculate the risks.
Yes.
Yeah, before to be more. Is it Peter that is doing that, or is it the author? Perhaps she's trying to give us a
I
lesson.
think it's the author, more like the author wants the reader to think it's Peter, but it's the author.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you, doctor.
Mm. Dina, are you still raising your hand? Okay,
She's
drop your.
typing in the chat that we cannot hear her.
No, we cannot hear you, Yadina. I advise you to go out and come back. Perhaps that would fix the problem. Go out and come back. That's fine. Okay. So it's a lot of things that you can come out with every time, like I said, you put your head to the picture book because it's very suggestive. And this is typical of literature. Literature is up for grabs in terms of interpretations. The more you read, the more you put your head into it, the more the ideas. So obviously the conversation and the discussion never ends when it comes to the Tale of Peter Rabbit or any other piece of literature for that matter. But we need to limit the scope a little bit because we have other things to also think of. Today we're going to be focusing more on what a picture book and the history of children's literature and especially picture books. And then perhaps talk about some of the themes and the ideas that stand out every time people talk about the Tale of Peter Rabbit. And I think by now, if we start with the themes and the ideas, by now you may have, kind of come up with a clear vision as what the trajectory is when it comes to the tale of Peter Rabbit in terms of themes and ideas. There is always talk about this idea of rebellion and whether this is what Peter Rabbit is symbolic of a rebellious hero and whether this rebellion is an innocent one, which means a child or a child's rebellion, and this happens. We all, as children, don't want people to impose rules on us. That's why we normally flout those rules. But we do it perhaps for fun. We do it because we know that our parents are so nice with us and they wouldn't take it to heart and they're not going to take it seriously. This is the kind of rebellion that you may think of. Other people give it perhaps more depth and more philosophy, and they make it even more philosophical and more political. And they say that Peter can be, symbolic of those people or animals for that matter, who are downtrodden, who are treated unfairly, whose perhaps lands are taken from them because, Mr. Kruger, obviously, when we think of land, we think of all the land as being part of nature, and obviously, nature was meant for animals and birds before it was meant for human beings. So human beings are normally presented as transgressors, as infringers, as trying to possess things that are not theirs and dispossess other creatures. So this can be a high level interpretation of the picture book and what Peter did, and the fact that he can be a figure who is trying to go against authority, established authority. And then the authority here is the authority of his mother, first of all, and then the authority of Mr. Kruger, who represents, or Mac Kruger, I'm sorry, who represents, you know, perhaps colonizers and empires and big empires and rulers and everything in between. This is one of the ideas. Also the idea of gender, the fact that you have gender differences and you have also gender stereotypes, and you need to ask yourself whether Beatrice Potter is subscribing to those gender stereotypes, or is she saying something different? When you look at the characters and you see that the two girls or the three daughters or the three sisters of Peter are so docile, so non-assertive, and so submissive. They do whatever their mother say without a question asked you. That would be a typical stereotype, a typical gender rule um, that has always been there. The idea that women and girls are supposed to obey and be submissive, and they shouldn't resist, and they shouldn't ask or argue. That can be. And you also have the male figure, Peter, uh, doing what every male in literature does. I mean, he goes out, he goes into adventure, we upload to him and feel for him, and then he comes or emerges back victorious for the most part, very manly, very um, admirable. We feel admiration for him, even if I tell you, and the majority of population here are uh, young ladies, and I ask you, who are you going to relate to more? Let's try this. I don't want to spoil it for you. I don't want to impose my opinion. So if I ask you now, who are you identifying with more? Who are you? Who do you feel more relatable? The character of Peter or his sisters? Where are your sympathies? Where does your love and admiration go to Peter or to his sisters? Raise your hands. So how many of you is with the girls or like the girls more than Peter? Let me ask this question. Again, drop your hand and I'll ask the question again so that we can be clear on it. So who do you like more? If you like the girls more, remember the names? The three girls, the sisters of Peter. If you like them more than Peter, raise your hand. None of us likes them. Leanne does. Okay. So who likes Peter more? Raise your hand. Only two people? لأنه ما ينفعش. We're so many. Huh? Who is more relatable? Do you think Peter is more relatable? You identify more with Peter? Okay. طيب. So even if we have a slim majority with Peter, it means that even as ladies and young ladies, we feel more for the boy because he is presented in a traditional way as manly, as muscular, as courageous. No matter what happened to him, he was humiliated for sure. He was almost killed for sure. He had fears and concerns for sure, but he emerged victorious. If he safely goes home at the end, it means that he made it eventually. So this is a typical gender role where we expect the girls to be docile and non-submissive and non-adventurous, and we expect the boy to be otherwise, to be manly, to be courageous, to be more adventurous. See? Yeah, Dina, you wanted to say something. Dina, we cannot hear you, للأسف. Okay, so so this is one of the ideas that we're grappling with, whether we have stereotypical attitudes, whether they are gender or any otherwise in the picture book, and they do happen and they do occur in the picture book. So it's this is one of the ideas that we're all the time talking about, the idea of genders and how genders and whether the picture book is written along gender lines, typical gender lines, and I promise you, yes, they do. Obviously, Potter is not hiding this. Lots of people are saying that she is sometimes implicit about what kind of messages she is trying to communicate and drop, but sometimes she is very clear about it. When you have all the girls acting in a very obedient, submissive way, and the only son that we have, or the only male that we have, is the complete opposite, right? Okay. Remember, uh, we spoke a lot about the integration and the harmony that should exist between the image and the text in any picture book. This is a prerequisite for the success of any picture book. You can, I mean, they normally complement each other, or perhaps we would say that the word and the phrases and the sentence sometimes stay silent on certain things. They cannot convey the nuances of the feelings and the complexities of those things. So you would have the image doing that. You normally look at where Peter is, in what kind of situation he is, whether he is in a compromising position, so that we can feel for him. Is he down or up? If is he near us? Is he is close up? And you also look at his enemies, the Mr. Matt Kruger, for example, where he is. He is normally presented on the margins, distant, because of the distance that he has created with us, because of his enmity, because of his colonizer attitudes, because of his oppressive nature. Remember, we knew about him even before this encounter with Peter. Remember what he did to Peter's father, which seems to be presented in the text in a very uh, um, in a very casual way. When you read it, you don't feel it. You may miss the the idea or the greatness of the moment. It just passes you. The fact that he was made into a pie. I mean, his father. So it's written in a very casual way. But when you go and look at the expression on perhaps the face of the characters, if this is portrayed, you would the feeling would be very different. But that's why we're saying that your reading is incomplete until and unless you give proper and due attention to the picture, to the corresponding picture. The picture can complete the image. It can give you a very good, you know, a good reading of the whole thing. Let's move, because I have something to share, I think, with you. Yeah, this is all about, again, the focus is on picture books and children's literature in general, and also the trajectory that they took over the years. So, of course, we know that Peter Rabbit, or The Tale of Peter Rabbit, was published in 1902, which was still Victorian. If we talk about the Victorian age, we say that this is also part of the Victorian uh, uh, part of the Victorian age. That's why you're going to find that the novel expresses Victorian attitudes. How much do we know about Potter herself? We know that she was an avid sketcher. I mean, she used to draw. She was a painter. and she was a painter of insects, birds, and landscapes, flowers, and other plants and animals. And she has this knack for accuracy and attention to details. She's known for that, especially for anatomical detail. I mean, you know, anatomy and the body of the animals and their different contours and details and everything. And then we have this reference to, like I said, the trajectory of picture books and the trajectory and the path of children's literature. And we're starting with Whaley. Whaley is one of the critics, and he or she is giving us a historical outline, starting with the mid-17th century. And he's taking us all the way to the First World War, where there is always this idea that when picture books started, and when children's literature in general started, it wasn't thought of much. People were not taking it very seriously. You know, producers and publishers wouldn't take it seriously, and they would simply they wouldn't invest heavily on it. They focus on mainstream literature, and they don't give you know, the money needed for a good production of those works. That's why they would look cheap, and that's why people wouldn't show much interest in them. This is in terms of production and also in terms of mentality. People didn't think much of children's literature and picture books in the past. For them, if we say literature, it means literature that addresses adults and that is about adults, you know, the novels that we have taken over the years. So again, they wouldn't invest money, they wouldn't care, and the end result is that this kind of neglected literature that nobody reads. So the end result is that we're having cheap and simplified illustrations that was considered you know, considered adequate. They said, "No, this is enough for them. If we have to produce them, they have to we have to produce them this way. No, we don't have to invest much money in them." But over time, this is going to change. You know, producers and publishers are going to start to show interest, and they are going to think of changing the design and improving it until uh, you know, children's literature and picture books become important. For them, until that point and moment, it was supplementary material, and it wasn't highly important for them. And then we leave this part, and then we move on to Mabus, who is another scholar and critic. And with Mabus, the focus is more on the not the text, the work itself. Whether we're talking about the picture in it or the words. With Mobus, multimodality is very important and very central to the whole process. And what do we mean by multimodality? He says that whenever we examine a picture book, the focus shouldn't only be on the text or the word. The focus should also be on the picture. So if it's not only the words that we're looking at, and if it's something else, this is what we call multimodality. In fact, this is a multimodal approach to analysis and to textual analysis that we're not used to. This is part of what we now call visual stylistics. So stylistics means that we're talking about the words. Visual means that we're also taking care of the illustrations and the images therein. And this is part of a whole school of literature that we call structuralism and semiotism. So this is what we call semiotic analysis, where you also focus on the sign, on the symbols, and the symbols are not only words, they can also be images and pictures. Again, this is all part of the study and the endeavor and the discipline that we call multimodality. So what does multimodality mean? It is a close reading of the visual elements of text in their own right, and of how the visual combines with words in text to create meaning for readers and viewers. So you don't look for meaning in the word and the phrase and the sentence only. You need to also look at the corresponding image because it gives you, like I said, it's full of meaning. It's either complements the meaning or it even demystify the words. Sometimes the words are so intriguing you don't understand them and what they mean. Their suggestiveness is very high. That's why the meaning is up for grabs. You go to the image and things becomes clear. So this is called multimodality. Um, so according to Mobus, the picture books lend themselves to detailed textual analysis and renewed close scrutiny. And they dispel the myth that picture books are simplistic, or aimed only at children. So with picture books, uh, uh, um, you don't have what people used to think of, that they were simplistic, they were stupid, they were meant for little minds. No, they are not. They are far from it. They are bigger than that. Again, why did we think of them this way? Because we were ignoring a very important aspect of the experience, which is the visual part of it. So again, Mobus is saying no. Picture books are never simple and they are never simplistic, and you need to reconsider how you used to look at them. And we happen to agree. Like I said, every time you read the picture book and you look very closely at the pictures, you come up with so many ideas. He argues that images cannot and must not be looked at in isolation from the surrounding text. You don't look at the text in isolation, and you also don't look at the images in isolation. You put them, there has to be a context. That the context, you need to set the context in terms of time and place, in terms of the ideas and the ideologies that the text is inspired by. So he argues that images cannot and must not be looked at in isolation from the surrounding text. So again, he focuses on the idea of context, and also the fact that any children's book has sequence and has meaning that is derived from where the image is positioned in the text and how those images and how they interact with the words. So interpretation, according to Mobus, is not fixed, which means that the text is up for grabs. You can come up with as many meanings as you possibly can. He refers to the idea of allusions and intertextuality. Allusions means that the writer of a picture book can be referring to another text or can be referring to another image. And this is, if we miss this in the tale of Peter Rabbit, we were sure not to miss it in Voices in the Park, where there is a great deal of intertextuality, where there is a great deal of visual intertextuality, even. Again, you may want to stop me and Mobus and say, intertextuality, isn't that meant partly for children? Can a child understand something beyond the text? Are you going to tell him, or you're going to refer to things outside the context, the text? Like, for example, you refer to poems by other writers or painters by other painters. Do you think that the student is, I'm sorry, the child is able or capable of knowing about that? He normally says no, he doesn't have to. And again, he says that it's perhaps where it's a process of learning. To You're trying to also teach the child to perhaps expand his horizons, and you're trying to also establish the fact that children's literature are not merely for children. They can be for children and can be for other people who are not obviously children. Um, so again, Mobus is trying to, he came up with what we call codes. He has his codes, and he says that every time you see those codes and those symbols in a text, you interpret them in a certain way. So he laid foundations for recent works in this area of visual, I told you, visual stylistics. And again, this is part of the multimodal and the multimodality efforts that he has been highlighting and engaged in. So he has his articles and books on codes, and one of them happens to be picture book codes, where he introduces some key aspects of images and how they are composed, the page design. And he says that those page design and composition contribute to our understanding of visual narratives. And I would like you to look at this idea of visual narratives. So narratives is text, whatever we read, and visual means the image that we have in the text. So any picture book is normally referred to as a visual narrative. And Mobus also draws part of his inspiration uh, um, from Morris Sendick's Where the Wild Things Are, which is a book that was widely analyzed in academic literature when it comes to picture books. So again, when he talks about the codes that we normally have in a picture book, Mobus focuses on those aspects in the picture book: position and size, perspective, framing, line, and color. And there is a great deal of talk about those things, and because they don't normally relate to what we're doing, and he applies his theory and his quotes on things other than the tale of Peter Rabbit and voices of the. So for example, Brown's picture book version of Hansel and Gretel, which is something that we don't. And then we move on to Margaret Mackay. She wrote an article that we have in this big book that I referred you to, that I would like you to read. Of course, not the whole book, the essay or the article by Margaret Mackay. And the title of the article is Peter Rabbit, Potter's Story. In this essay on Peter Rabbit, Margaret Mackay considers many different versions of Peter Rabbit. She also uh, looks at the different versions. And obviously, when we talk about versions, you would say one version is enough because it's a text. It's going to be the same thing. No, no. That how the book. Remember, this is a picture book and not a novel, for example. So normally the outlay, the presentation makes all the difference. And remember, this is also presented for the most part for children. So the versions may differ in how they are presented. So again, she's looking into that. She's talking also about the kind of relationship that may exist based on not only the meaning but also on the presentation of the text. According to her, a picture book is a textual work of art. So it's a text and it's also a work of art. So when I talk about work of art, of course, we talk about painting, sculpture, but because you have a text now, so it's the text now is a work of art because it has images in it. She looks at the different aspects of the book and she would include the artwork itself, the illustration, and how this is written, and how it is reproduced in the different editions. She also explores the importance of the words and the illustrations and how they are combined on the page and how they come together in order to give us the effect or the intended effect. She looks at other elements. She looks at of the book design like size, positioning of words and images, the spaces between and around them. Um, and then we have examples where there is this idea of the balance. There is talk about positioning where Peter is, where the other characters are in relation to him. There is always this talk about the balance between the words and the illustrations and the use of page turners. According to her, they make all the difference. She also has something to say about the style of um, Potter herself, and she says that her style is brisk and it is one that does not talk down to her younger audience. This is very important. Remember when I spoke about the idea of intertextuality. Intertextuality means that you refer to things outside the text, and you would say, now how can a child understand uh, understand that? And obviously, McKay is answering this question by saying that Potter does not talk down to her children. She doesn't try to simplify the language, and as if she's dealing with the child as if he is a mature reader. She perhaps some people may say that this is respecting the child, thinking of the child as a normal human being capable of understanding, even if he or she is a child. So again, McKay focuses or perhaps pays close attention to the physical characteristics of the book and its internal design. And she refers to all of those things, and she says that would influence the meanings that the reader can get from the text. So for McKay, pictures in a visual narrative have a narrative function. She also refers to the use of page turners, and she sees this as evidence of Potter's authorial control. So page turns creates a pause in action, hence bring opportunities for suspense and surprise, according to McKay. Again, she addresses herself to also the idea of gender and morality in the tale of Peter Rabbit. So she's not only focused on the formal aspects that would contribute towards a full meaning, she also addresses herself to certain, thematic issues that the idea of gender and whether we have typical gender roles or subverted gender roles. And she also talked about the idea of morality and rebellion and transgression against authority and all these kinds of things. And then we move to another critic. It's Peter Hollendale, and the title of the article is Aesop in the Shadows. And Aesop is a reference to this very famous, perhaps mythical Greek writer from ancient times who used to write fables, and fables are animal stories that have a moral lesson to them. Those works were highly anthropomorphic, where animals are featured, they are given human qualities, they behave like human beings, they hate and they love, they express emotions, just like us. So this is credited to Aesop in the ancient times, and according to Peter Hollendale, Beatrice Potter has her inspiration from back then. You can trace the influence of Aesop in her works. Um, so, according to Peter Hollendale, and along those Aesop lines, Peter Rabbit can be considered as an animal fable. So, it's a fable, which means that you have animals presented, which is true because Peter and his mom and his uh, sisters are animals, are rabbits, and they behave like human beings. They show care to each other. The mom gives orders like any typical mother. The sisters obey like any sisters. They are presented as human beings, and this is uh, the tradition of the fable. And you normally have moral lesson at the end, which is what we're having, because you may think of this picture book as giving you a moral lesson, depending on which side you are on, whether what happened to Peter Rabbit was meant to tell us that we shouldn't disobey our parents, and that can be a moral lesson, or whether we can kind of resist and defy authority, and that can be another moral lesson. So Peter's behavior is rash, inappropriate, and disobedient. And we got to know what happened to him, and this can be a moral lesson in accordance with the traditions of the fable. Again, Holland also addresses himself in part of the discussion to Potter's interest in mycology, which is the study of fungi, to support his view that success of Potter's books for children can be traced back to her talents as a naturalist and as an artist. Uh, he also rejects the notion that Potter is a moralist, or she has a moralist. I mean, he seems to be contradicting himself. At one point, he's saying that Peter Rabbit, or the tale of Peter Rabbit, can be considered as an animal fable, and we all that animal fables have a moral lesson. And here he is saying that no, the author is not moralizing. So according to him, it's it's a fable and not. But the Potter is not a fabulist, is not a writer of fables. Um, what does he look, or how does, or what does he consider Potter? He sees her as a post-fabulist naturalist, someone with keen focus on nature and its realities. So she is an author whose work derives in part from forerunners like Aesop, but without an instructional agenda. He seems towards the art in the article. He seems to insist on the fact that uh, um, Potter does not have an instructional agenda. She's not trying to moralize or to give a moral lesson. And he says that whoever is saying that Potter is a moralist is mistaken. And then we move to another critic by the name of Carol Scott. And Carol Scott wrote an article called Perspective and Point of View in the Tale of Peter Rabbit, where she also addresses the idea of Potter's, um, attitude. They are trying to kind of uncover Potter's intentions. They are trying to look at the intentions of Potter, and obviously they say that her intentions, you can never truly and safely say that she is a moralist or she is not, because she has this ambivalent moral perspective. You cannot really know where she stands, whether she is trying to give a moral lesson or she is staying on the fence, not taking sides, only presenting. At point you may feel that through her writings and through her pictures, she is trying to push the reader to identify with Peter, and that Peter is framed as a hero of the tale. And this is given especially in 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 the visuals. Again, with Scott, we still have this focus on the images and the words as a combination, as working in harmony towards one single goal, which is the effect that the writer wants to communicate or have on the reader. According to Scott, Peter is often shown in close up and also near to the ground, or near the ground, I'm sorry, where a rabbit would be. This is a sign of downtroddenness, victim, attitude, and it normally endears the character to us. So we are often made to also share Peter's line of sight. His point of view becomes ours, and we participate in his predicaments or dilemmas or his challenges and problems. So for these, we identify with him against authority as represented by Mr. Mac Kruger. And like I said, Scott is analyzing that. And there is this shift to this talk about how different Peter Rabbit is from the other modern picture books. Again, he highlights the importance of images in Peter Rabbit and explores Peter's motivation for rebelliousness and the unwillingness to submit to authority rather than to hunger. Again, these are clues and these are quotes that you pick up from looking at the pictures, especially. Again, there is also this idea. Of course, when you look at the Tale of Peter Rabbit, in terms of time, you wouldn't say that it's a postmodern text because it was published in 1901 or 2, which makes it modern, not postmodern. But the part that brings this idea of intertextuality is us as postmodern readers and audience. The fact that we live in the postmodern age and we have postmodern tools that we cannot ignore, like the intertextuality, the idea of play, mystique, the idea of non-linearity when it comes to the how things are narrated, and we seem to be imposing those things on the picture book. So that's why it might be a good idea if we talk about what postmodernism is, because we're going to see this happening in Voices in the Park, which is a typical postmodern piece of work. So, if we start by defining what postmodernism is, we're going to find that this is a very difficult term to define, because it's a lot of things, and sometimes they are not compatible. So, whenever we talk about postmodernism, we're not talking about a definition, but we're talking about characteristics that we get to see repeated in different texts. The first thing about postmodernism would be the idea that we normally have lots of intertextuality, and intertextuality is the use in one text of reference or allusions to another. Again, intertextuality is all over the place. It exists even before postmodernism. And it is a frequent feature in contemporary picture books, where it is used for ludic purposes and playful effects. The other elements that we normally see in postmodern works is the idea of play, whether there is this play with words, with images, with reader, and even with the book as an artifact. You also have this idea of transgression, and this is something that we have seen in the Tale of Peter picture, the Tale of Peter Rabbit. The idea of transgression. Transgression means that you go against something, you break certain laws, you transgress against something. So transgression, you transgress against boundaries of appropriate behavior, social conventions, you violate norms, you don't live up to society's mores and expectations and everything in between. And you also have the idea of irony. Irony is also one of the aspects of postmodern works. And it can be done through the plot, through alternative given something, but you mean something else. You give alternative meanings to supposedly stable and fixed meanings. Also, the idea of role reversals and challenges to hierarchies, which is something we also see in the Tale of Peter Rabbit. We have we don't. I wouldn't say that we have role reversals, but we have challenges to authorities and hierarchies. For example, you have the authority of the parents as given by the mother, and Peter is obviously challenging this authority by disobeying his mother. You have also the authority of human beings, and obviously an animal is Peter here is challenging it. And also the idea of destabilization or the breakdown in meaning, where meaning is, like I said, is up for grabs. It's not stable. It may change. It can contradict itself. You can see a lot of subversion of meaning, of structures, and everything in between. So postmodern literature is about breaking rules of literature, and picture books can be exceptionally ludic and playful. And we have people, lots of scholars, talking about this idea of postmodernism and its different techniques and its different characteristics, and whether those characteristics can be traced in the text, and whether they are explicitly given or otherwise. This is, I think this article is something, it's Peter Goldstone, and we'll do it later because it does not apply. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I can hear you.
The article you mean
What?
Carol's cut that we don't. Which article do you mean that we will not take now? Carol's cut?
No, I'm talking about the article that uh, um, its title is Postmodern Experiments. We'll keep it until we finish Voices in the Park because it doesn't apply to what we're doing, especially with Peter, the Taylor Peter. This article, Pete Goldstone, Postmodern Experiments. It would apply more to I'm sorry, to Voices in the Park and also to Tom's Midnight Garden, where there is a great deal of postmodernism given. Again, this is all about the postmodern techniques, and these are things that we're not seeing in the Tale of Peter Rabbit. I'm trying to look at things that would apply to what we're doing. And here there is this talk about Voices in the Park, which is something that we haven't done so far. Okay, we'll stop with this because it's all about Voices in the Park. It's about gorilla motifs, and these are also things that we're going to only see with the Voices in the Park. I'll give you a 5 minute break, and then when we come back, we talk about other things. Okay, everyone? I'll see you in 5 minutes, inshallah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you find the? I've been talking for so long, right? Very talkative, right? A broken radio, like I used to. I like to call myself. But you guys are not interacting. You could have stopped me, right?
No, we're enjoying it, honestly. It's
Thank you.
kids' literature.
Yeah,
You're
yeah. All right, let's talk about it. Um, I would like you to do me a favor. I would like you to revisit the text one more time. And I'll give you some questions, and I would like you, while reading, to think of these questions. Perhaps, and we spoke enough about the text, perhaps we can even discuss them now, and I would give you a further opportunity to reflect on them on your own when you do the reading that I'm asking you to do. Let me check if I have those questions. And let's look at them. I don't know whether you can see them or not. Am I sharing my slides? My screen? I mean, um,
no, doctor.
Not yet.
okay, let me see. No, not even during. The, by the way, I was under the impression that I was sharing my slides. Wasn't I sharing my slides?
No, doctor. And I was gonna mention it, but I thought that it might come off as rude.
You know, let me show you the slides that I was working from. I was working from here. Wait, I don't know whether I'm sharing now. No, not even now. This is, can you see that I was talking from these things? Can you imagine?
We're sorry, doctor.
No, I am sorry. I should have checked with you. That's fine. That's fine. Fine. As I said, these are the questions that I would like us to think of and reflect on when it comes to the tale of Peter Rabbit. And let's do something fun, which is I'll show you the questions and I would like you to pick one and talk about. I'm not testing you, mind you. Um, the question that you feel comfortable talking about, come to the mic and share whatever insights. And again, I will allow you to reflect on it on your own. Perhaps you can talk about them tomorrow in the master class. Don't we have a master class tomorrow? Do we have a
Yes.
master? Yes.
Yes, we have.
And yeah. And aren't you promising me to come tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I will come, inshallah.
Inshallah. Great.
8
Okay,
a.m.
so
sharp.
yes, in AM. 8 a.m. inshallah. So look at these questions, and I would like you to now choose one of them and come to the mic and share ideas. I mean, that's like I said, that's whatever you think you can talk about. We're not judging or taxing anyone. So look at them. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Let me see how many questions we have. We have a lot actually, except for those. I think I'll make them smaller, perhaps. So that we can have them in only one page. Okay, so these are the questions that I would like you to think of. And think of any of them. Give me one. And think of one and come to the mic and share ideas. I'll give you perhaps a couple of minutes. No, 5 minutes. Because you need to think of them. Go ahead.
Doctor,
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
can can one of these questions come later as a say question in the exams?
No, no, it's not typical. They can be rephrased because these are ideas that are inspired by the text. The themes can come, but not the questions or the exact wording. So this can also be guidelines for you. You when you revisit the text because you'll do other stuff. And instead of doing the whole thing one more time, you go to the questions and you try to answer them. You develop them into essays because they pretty much cover everything in when it comes to the Tale of Peter Rabbit. Can be a very nice revision tool if you like. Okay, who is ready? Like I said, we're not judging, okay? So come to the mic and share. Tell me what the question is and then go ahead. Hmm. Can I see a show of hands? Yeah, Diane, go ahead. Which question? Number what? Can you read it for us? Diane, are you talking?
Question number 2.
Yeah.
Beatrix,
Can you can you read it out loud for us?
yes.
Yeah.
Beatrix author Peter Rabbit has encouraged many generations of children to self-indulgence, disobedience, transgression of social boundaries and ethics.
Okay. So I would like you to first of all tell us what you what you understood, and then go ahead and give us what you think.
Okay, I understood that. How can I say it?
Yeah, take your time. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that Pete that Peter encouraged us that it is not fair that always we should be obedient because it is okay to take some adventures, although not always, because the story itself show us the negative consequences of his disobedience. So of disobedience for
Are we when we see Peter emerging victorious at the end? Because obviously at the end he didn't get killed like his father, let's say. He ran away and he could escape, right? Do you think that this is likely to encourage new generations of children to do like him? Do you think this is perhaps the message, good or bad, wrong or right, that we're getting?
that not um, not uh, not much bad and not much right because he was suffering because of his disobedience and taking this dangerous adventure because he
But
can take
you
a
don't you
more
don't
shorter.
you don't think this is what I may have understood from you. You don't think that he wasn't punished. You think that he was punished, and that may make generations of children think twice before they do like him. This is what you're trying to say?
Yes,
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Think about it more, Yalayan. Remember, I told you that you're going to promise me to read the text again, and you guys graciously enough promised to do that. But let's read the text again and think of the questions again. Thank you. Let's move all the way to Dina because she was raising her hand. Are you trying to answer the same question, Dina, or you have something else in mind? Dina, you're raising your hand, but you never speak. We cannot hear you. طيب, Aisha, go ahead.
Question number 5.
Okay. Do you still remember what it says, Aisha? Would you like to read it
Yes.
out loud for us? Go ahead.
Number 5. What is the symbolism of Peter's jacket and Peter Rabbit when he has it on and when he is stripped out of it?
Yeah.
Off of it.
Let me first of all tell you something because you're graduating. MashaAllah, your voice is very media worthy. You can be a broadcaster, perhaps a podcaster. You can work in media. Are you thinking
Thank
about
you,
that,
doctor.
Aisha? Really,
Yes.
MashaAllah. Your
Yes.
language is very nice, and your
Thank you.
voice is also very, like I said, it can be a real asset for you if you think of media, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome. Yalla, go ahead.
The symbolism, what I've noticed is when Mr. Gregor took the jacket after Peter running off, he hung it to scare the blackbirds, the crows. So he used that symbol as in to warn other rabbits to not come around the garden, picking the fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, this is the symbolism that Mr. Matt Kruger is,
Warning.
is creating for himself. But this is obviously very limited.
Yes.
We're thinking about it in a bigger scope,
Picture.
in a bigger light. We're thinking about it along the lines of who is civilized and who is not, and whether clothing is a sign of civilization, and if you don't have any of them, you are stripped of your civilized behavior and your civilized self. And think about it along these lines, ya Aisha.
Inshallah.
Yeah, think about it, and inshallah we can revisit it tomorrow. Thank
Inshallah.
you.
Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any? Would you like to? Bye. Again, you will have the recording and you will have the questions. Go back to the recording and think of the questions and be ready with a question, one of them. Be ready to talk about it tomorrow. Again, this shouldn't happen unless and until you have read the text again and again. You don't read the words and the phrases and the sentences and forget all about the images. The images are as important, if not more important, sometimes than the words and the sentences. Is that clear, everyone? Right.
Yes.
Since we're meeting tomorrow, and since we haven't stopped talking about, and we're not likely to stop talking about the tale of Peter Rabbit, I'm going to stop on this note and with this item, and I'll meet you tomorrow in the master class, inshallah. And perhaps we have 3 more minutes if you guys have anything else to share with us. Okay, طيب. We'll call it a day, and I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 8 a.m. in the master class.
Inshallah. Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Bye bye.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.